Get a little bit more on there. And because we're starting with a cold can, cold charcoal, cold lighter fluid, it's not going to take and flame up. A lot of people think that they kind of get a little scared to light that. But what happens is, if it's cold, it won't flash over. If it is a hot can that you've got some charcoal already that's been heated in there and you're just reigniting or adding some more to the pot, put that lighter fluid in there and light it, it's going to flame up, so be cautious of that. So we're going to get our charcoal going in that chimney, and a lot of people will tell you, take some paper towels and put it underneath that, or some newspaper and crinkle it up and light it that way, and that flame will come up. Well, I got to tell you that these are designed so that you can light them from the top and they will draw down. Those holes in the side and in the bottom allow that draft to come through and needs that oxygen to burn. And I don't have any problem with those lighting all the way down through the bottom. Here in Arizona, it's very dry. Last thing I want to do is get implicated in starting a forest fire or a desert brush fire. And it can happen very easily when you use paper products and put that underneath it. Those embers start to fly around, and on a little bit of a breezy day, those embers can drift off. Fortunately, I'm out here in a lot of dirt, and so I don't have any brush that's going to ignite. So I feel a little safe about doing that. But that's just a recommendation, is avoid doing the paper product. Okay, our charcoal should be about ready to where we can put it together. We're going to take this whole thing and just kind of dump it over upside down. And the purpose of that for is we can see which ones are lit and which ones still need a little juice. We probably could have waited another minute or two, but what we'll do is we'll spray a little bit of lighter fluid on those. And we were talking about how that'll flame up. Watch that. Boom. And while those are getting ready to go, we're going to wait a minute or two for those other coals to get going. But we're going to talk about heat control here. And one of the biggest things that I can tell you about heat control is, once you understand heat control, there's nothing that you can't do in a Dutch oven. And there's a lot of people that will take and tell you just to sprinkle them over across the top. That'll work, but you got to tend to it quite often. So I'm going to teach you the way that I've learned and has been very successful for me. You're going to take the size of the Dutch oven, and most recipes cook at 350 degrees. We'll start with that. So we're going to teach you how to get to a 350 degree baking oven. You're going to take, just like in your home oven, and put about 2/3 of the heat on top and 1/3 at the bottom. And we're going to do that by taking and putting the size +3 on the top, the size -3 on the bottom. So just think of, when you go up, you add, when you go down, you subtract. Just kind of like your elevation when you're in a plane. The number increases when you go up, and it decreases when you go down. So maybe that'll help you to remember it. So we're going to take 16, and we're going to add 3 to that number. So we need about 19 on the top for all you mathematicians out there. And I've kind of learned from experience that you can count them, or you can just take and put them on there. And when you take and just put them side by side and go around the lid, you pretty much are going to be pretty close to that number that you're looking for. So those of you that are watching, you're probably counting to see how well I'm doing. And this recipe needs to cook at about 375, so we'll teach you how to do that. Now, the placement of the coals is also important. You want to do it around the outside edge. This is a bigger oven than normally what you use, and so we might put 1 or 2 on the center normally when we're cooking breads or rolls or something like that. But for the most part, we put them on the outside edge. And as you remember, we've got a pan in the center of that, so there's nothing there that we really need to cook. It's all on the outside edge anyway, so this works just like that. So we're going to start right there with that one. We're going to move it out so we know which one we're starting with. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. Isn't that how many we need? 20, 21, 22. So we got 22 coals on the top there. Now, we're going to take on the bottom, and we're going to take 16 minus 3. So we need how many on the bottom? 13.
Well, if I'm counting right, you need 19 on the top instead of 22.
That is correct. But, like I said, we need to cook this at about 375. So for each additional coal you put on top and bottom will increase the temperature of your oven by about 15 to 20 degrees. So being that we need 375, we need 1 or 2 more coals on top and bottom. So we need probably about 14 on the bottom. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So try and space those out about the same size as that oven. And you'll see that these are not completely gray. And that's important because if you wait till they turn completely gray, you've lost half your cooking time. And so what you'll wind up doing is using twice as much charcoal. So now we've got that on there. And here's an important tip. If you put the bale to one side, it kind of sticks up right along that edge. And so what happens is those coals are going to heat up that handle. But it goes the other way and it'll drop considerably lower, and that way it keeps it from heating up. Just an important tip, because you always want to assume that they're hot. So whenever you grab them, you want to just touch them and kind of get a feel for it first before you start lifting. Now it's also important to have a good pair of leather gloves. These ones will work for moving that kind of stuff, but when you start grabbing an oven, it won't work. And if it's got a hole in it, you're going to find it very quickly. So these are great and handy to have for a lot of miscellaneous things, but working around Dutch ovens, probably not so much. Now you can go to your welder supplier or Harbor Freight or Home Depot, a lot of those places, and get you a pair of welding gloves. They're fairly inexpensive and you can get those, and that works really well for using around your Dutch ovens. And if you got friends in the fire department, I've got a pair of firefighter gloves that they actually use for firefighting. And you can see where I've kind of grabbed a hold of some hot ovens and melted the fingertips a little bit. But these things work great. And so it's nice to have friends in the fire department. We appreciate those people. So, being I know that this oven's cold, I'm going to go ahead and move this oven right over on top of those coals. And again, fold that lid over to that side. Now, you see these excess coals here? There's heat coming from those. That's going to radiate against the side of that Dutch oven and create a hot spot. And we don't want that because that's the side that will burn. Now, we have a little bit of a breeze coming from this direction today, but it's not enough that it's really going to affect that. If it was blowing a little bit stronger, we might want to take that into consideration, especially when you're doing cakes and breads and things of that type of texture. You don't want to, it's not going to cook all the way through like a stew or a chili or something like that. So you might have to take, and part way through the cook is rotate the oven around so that it counteracts for that wind to come that direction. What we're going to do is we're going to take our coals, and these are a couple of good tools to have. One is a nice square nose shovel. You can quickly scoop a lot of coals onto that shovel. And when we're done, we'll use that same shovel to gather up all our ashes off the Dutch oven table, and we'll put them right there in that ash can. That way we can haul them away and we can cut off the oxygen to them, and they'll smother out rather quickly. What we're going to do is we're going to bring this over here, move our vinegar bottle so it doesn't melt. Make a difference? It might. We'd hate to have any explosions today. So some of these coals are probably not going cooked yet. Now, good pair of long tongs is very important for being able to move around your coals. Now, I've been on some campsites where we're out in the woods and you forget these, but you might have a pair of channel locks. Now these will work to move around your coals. It's a little more tedious and a little difficult to use. You can also use it to lift off your lid. It'll work, but again, you notice how close your arms or your hands are getting to those coals? That heat is going to take and burn your hands. Now, a long pair of tongs will allow you to use those to move those coals around, and you'll save the hair and the skin on your knuckles. Now you got a fancy Dutch oven table here. This one's made by Camp Chef, and these are great and wonderful for us guys that don't like to bend over and cook on the ground too much anymore. However, is it necessary? Not required. The legs come off of this, and that table will sit on a tailgate, on a pickup. It'll sit on a tabletop at the picnic area, at the rest area, and it doesn't generate enough heat down below it that it will create a hot spot or melt anything on that tabletop. So I've used them on plastic tabletops. I've used them on tailgates of my pickup. But it's not a requirement. Like I said earlier in my introduction, I've taken just a regular old cookie sheet, foil cookie sheet, thrown it on the ground, light my coals on there, and that's where I cook. And when I'm done, I can scoop all that stuff up, put some water in it, douse all the coals, and put it in the garbage can. So we've got that going. Let's cover another item that's very important. A good lid lifter. Now, I've done it with a pair of tongs. I've done it with a pair of channel locks. I've done it with a claw hammer, and that actually works pretty well. But that right there works exceptional. That is called a Mayer lid lifter. And the bends are nice and sharp. Billy Mayer made these, and he has since passed away and no longer in business. And so you might find these out there. If you can, they're great to have. This is a lid stand. Now you can turn it upside down like that and turn your lid upside down on it, and now you've got a griddle. You can use it to scramble some eggs. You can use it to fry some bacon. You can use it to make some cheese quesadillas and throw some jalapenos on there or green chilies. So many different things that you can use that lid for, and we'll cover that in another session as well. But I'm going to take that lid stand, I'm going to put it right on top of that oven. Normally we'd put it down on the ground, and that's where we put our lid. But the last thing you want to do, and you'll see people do it, grab a hold of their lid with their lid lifter, and they'll put it right down there on the ground. But they forget that that's gathering all that dirt and sticks and garbage on the bottom of that lid. And so when they put it over that food, that stuff's going to fall down inside there. So we're going to put it on there, and it's going to preheat that lid. While we're doing this, I really don't need that 12-inch lid to get real hot. So I'm just going to set it off to the side down on top of our chimney underneath here. That will act as a lid stand. Kind of keep that out of our way. Now, that lid lifter, there's two hooks right there. Now people ask me, well, isn't that front one the one that you grab the hook with? Well, that front hook becomes very handy, but if you go to lifting that Dutch oven, trying to lift it with just that hook, it's going to be pretty wobbly, and chances are you're going to spill some of that camp ash down inside your food. So you don't want that. You're going to take and grab it with that middle hook, and when you squeeze this handle together, it has 3 contact points here, here, and here. And by doing that, you've got pressure where you can grab hold of that lid, and you can feel confident in picking that up. I don't want to lift it because it's cooking, but there's an example. Now I can take that 12-inch lid and I can turn it upside down. I can dump my coals off into the ash can or whatever I need to do. I can set it on the lid stand while I take and serve the food. But there's another tip right there that comes to mind. A lot of times people will take and say, okay, my food's done. They lift the lid off, they set it aside, and they go to serving and digging it out. Then everybody goes and sits down and they enjoy their meal. What they forgot, those coals are still on the bottom. They're still working. And so what happens is they wind up burning food to the bottom of their oven. That becomes a problem. then you have to take and scrub it and try and get it out and clean it all up. Well guys, we hope you had a good time today. We're out of here, so we'll see you next time.